We have a supersized panel to help navigate this historic moment. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Vitali, AP White House reporter Darlene Superville, senior advisor to Senator Bernie Sanders, Faiz, Shakir, and Republican strategist Heye. Thank you so much for joining Meet the Press Now. And Darlene, I want to start with you. Big picture, what is your reaction to this historic indictment? What stuck out to you?
What stuck out to me is what's always stuck out to me, which is the question of why. Like, why did Donald Trump take these documents? He didn't have to be in this position, right? He could have returned documents when the government and the National Archives asked him to return them, but he resisted, and this is what many in Washington would call a self-inflicted wound, and he did not have to be here.
And that's what we were talking about earlier, right? What would have happened if they had just given them back? Or, not fought the returning of these documents. So that is a huge question here. And Allie, I want to turn to you. Republican allies of Donald Trump, they have walked a fine line here, but almost all of them yesterday came out and backed him, including, Governor DeSantis. Even Nikki Haley had an interesting, comment today. But I want to get to you. Have we seen any indication in the last few hours that there has been any shift in the Republican narrative here, or at least how many people are backing the former president?
No, it feels like all the people who would usually back him are backing him. The people who would usually be the first to point out his wrongdoing are doing so. Senator Mitt Romney said something akin to what you said, which is that Donald Trump brought this on himself. He didn't have to be in this position. And then, of course, their allies, even though they're technically his rivals, the people who want the same job that Trump is trying to get, are all trying to also stack themselves behind them. I actually think the one who did the most artful response was probably Pence, who left himself the ability to pivot in either direction, saying it's weaponization and politicization, but also saying that no one is above the law. That allows him, I think, the best position to pivot from going forward, even as he's not saying Trump should drop out like Asa Hutchinson is.
Right. And, he said he wanted to hear the facts come out. Right. So is Chris Christie. Well, now that the facts are out, it should be interesting to say if that message shifts in the next couple hours or the coming days. Doug, I want to turn to you. The last time that former President Trump was indicted, by the way, can we just say...
that's
not a normal sentence.
Yeah, exactly. The last time he was indicted, we saw his poll numbers go up. Do you think that happens here?
I don't think we know yet. And, when you say the next few hours and days are going to be indicative of this, you're exactly right. And it's because it's 6 o'clock tonight. Ron DeSantis is speaking to the North Carolina Republican Convention. Tomorrow at noon, Mike Pence is speaking. And then Donald Trump, 6 o'clock tomorrow, will be speaking. So all eyes are going to be in Greensboro, North Carolina. And if you've now seen what the details are in this indictment, it gives you political permission to make the separation. In politics, when you have an opportunity, you're supposed to take it. They didn't take it with the first indictment, and there were good reasons for that. A lot of people, even Democrats, thought this is political or not the indictment that you wanted. Again, a weird statement. This is very different. It's very serious. It's federal. And if you're Pence and if you're DeSantis and you want to create separation from Donald Trump, you've got your opportunity right now, and you have the venue to do it.
But they may also have the opportunity to alienate some of his supporters, which is, of course, what can be difficult here. And by the way, this isn't the last investigation; it was also the Georgia investigation.
Well, and we know that the Republican nomination doesn't go around Donald Trump; it goes through Donald Trump. You can't hope that somebody else is going to do your job for you. Politics here should be rather static. You have an opportunity, take it. When you come to a fork in the road, take it. They haven't done so yet. Again, tonight and tomorrow, they have the opportunity and the venue.
Maybe on the third indictment.
Maybe. Well, Faiz, I want to turn to you. President Biden and the White House has not touched this so far. Do they have any choice? How do Democrats play this moving forward?
Well, you got to honor the legal case, which is to take it out of a political realm and say that the facts are pretty damn strong, as you see in the characterization. You almost have a character of a comic villain of Donald Trump who's showing off his trophy case or his baseball signed by Babe Ruth. The things that we don't know that don't come through yet, and the reason why the White House has to hold, and I think a lot of the Republicans are going to hold, is who else was he talking to about this material? Because all we learned through the indictment is we've talked to a couple of individuals writing a book or journalists or whatever. Isn't it possible that a lot of people traveled through Mar-a-Lago? Who else is he talking to about classified materials involving military strikes and what Iran might do, what Iran might not do? And I think that ends up coloring so much of the political case. Right, and that's different from the legal case. And I think Doug was making this point that politically you have to hold a bit to allow some of this color. And presumably a lot of that might be on tape or on audio and other forms that we don't even know.
But I would add, too, that the White House is holding partly also because they don't want to be seen as playing any role or having any, input in what is happening to the former president.
But that said, the challenge for President Biden, obviously as the leader of a government, is that you have to honor that the DOJ is going to conduct a thorough investigation. I stand with the FBI, who does an honorable job serving. Yes, I'm not going to meddle in this case. However, you do have a role of defending that, which you could see Mike Pence's answer was suggesting that if you put me in charge as president, I too would respect law enforcement. Whereas the others, right, they're all staking claims where, like, yeah, if you put me in charge, I will screw law enforcement. I might fire all these guys, which is a radical position to take.
Allie, I want to get to you because you, of course, were with former President Trump back in 2016.
Yeah.
That's when we met. I was following.
It is when we met.
And you saw him speak about Hillary Clinton back then, over and over again. Let's actually play some of that.
In my administration, I'm going to enforce all laws concerning the protection of classified information. No one will be above the law. Hillary is likely to be under investigation for many years, probably concluding in a criminal trial. If she were to win this election, it would create an unprecedented constitutional crisis. In that situation, we could very well have a sitting president under felony indictment and ultimately a criminal trial. Her current scandals and controversies will continue throughout her presidency, and we will make it, honestly, look, it's going to be virtually impossible for her to govern.
It is surreal to hear those words. Now, what do you make of that, Allie? Listening to that 7 years later, and here we are.
I mean, if we were to rewrite Alanis Morissette's Ironic, you'd need to put a line in about that because he's saying the exact thing that ends up playing out now for him. It's partly why you see Hillary Clinton posting a but her emails picture on Instagram, because you almost have to just call out the hypocrisy of that. I do think it's stunning, though, that this is exactly how it happened. He made so much hay of the emails, and then there was a misuse of email within his administration. You saw him now say that I would take care of classified documents. Now he's taking them back to Mar-a-Lago. I mean, you couldn't write it better than this way. And that's why I'm actually surprised that more of his opponents aren't jumping on this, because it's such a clear example of, if you want to be the law and order party, this is law and order, is defending national security. And I think to make this case to the public, and as we watch this case move through, how do prosecutors prove this to a jury? How do they say it's Iran? This is detrimental to national. That's going to be a huge part of selling this to the public too.
And Darlene, how do you see this playing out? Because we at this point are expecting the other trial potentially in March of next year, the hush money trial. We don't know yet the timeline for this one, but chances are it will, potentially line up just as this presidential election is ramping up. How do you see this playing with the Republican Party and potentially backing a candidate who is facing a federal criminal trial?
It's a little time will tell kind of a situation. Trump has a lot of support with the base. I think that we need some time to see whether a lot of those people will stick with him or take the information that's in this indictment and say, enough is enough, I've had enough, I don't want this person, someone who would be this callous with classified information, to be president.
Doug, I want to switch over to something that you said. You said that this could be potentially the opportunity. Look, I've been with Governor DeSantis on the trail the last couple of weeks. I just don't see him. He's been very careful, of course, in his stump speeches, not to mention Trump. He only talks about it when he's directly asked. Is there any way that you can see him potentially pivoting to attacking Donald Trump's drama here? But he's gone so far to attack the weaponization of the DOJ. He's kind of boxed himself into a corner now, hasn't he?
Well, I think you can do both at the same time. DeSantis sort of made that remark of, I don't know anything about paying hush money to strippers and things like that.
Right.
You can highlight the drama, and you can say, regardless of whether or not Donald Trump did something wrong or not, there's too much drama around him, too much chaos. He can't focus 100% on beating Joe Biden. And by God, we need a Republican who's going to focus on beating Biden. That's a message that can sell, and it ties directly into Ron DeSantis's I'm a winner message, and we lose too much with Donald Trump, especially when you consider the independent voters, the people who voted for Donald Trump voted for Donald Trump in 2016 and Joe Biden in 2020, that flipped Arizona for him, made North Carolina so close. those are voters who are not going back to Donald Trump. And all of this ties into the DeSantis, I'm a winner argument.
Right, and Allie, I think Nikki Haley is trying to make the argument too, or trying to have it both ways, attacking the drama,
Exactly.
but saying the weaponization. Do you think that's going to fly with her?
And not mentioning him by name at all. I don't think that you can be too cute by half. I actually think that's a great argument to make. Tackling this through the lens of electability is a really good argument for people because Republicans just want to win back the White House. But no one is actually making that explicit argument. And I do think for voters, A, you can't have them infer that that's your argument. Someone needs to say it. But B, the reality is that this legal process is going to drag on for months. And we could have voters who voted in Iowa, New Hampshire, even South Carolina and Nevada before this has even hit court. He could end up stitching up the nomination and then potentially getting indicted. And I think for voters, asking them to entertain that as a possibility, every candidate should do that because that is a central focus here that they're not going to just infer. You got to put it right in front of them.
And Faiz, I want to kind of wrap up with you. You were with the candidate back in 2016. Obviously, Bernie Sanders had a lot to deal with in terms of classified documents and the whole Hillary Clinton emails thing. He famously said, "We don't care about your emails." How is this different? Because the argument that many Republicans will make is like, well, Hillary Clinton wasn't prosecuted. This is, voters don't care about this stuff. How is this different?
I mean, it's certainly a gift for President Biden and his reelect campaign. I mean, the fear of Trump certainly was a mobilizing factor for many Democrats, plus 50% of the country. For Biden, who has his own weaknesses right now with animation and excitement and passion, he's going to get it out of the Trump case. And I think for many people, I get the electability arguments. For many people are just going to say, can you imagine putting that guy back in charge as president for 4 more years with that kind of deranged conduct, that kind of deranged mentality, a person scorned by the FBI, you put him back in charge? What's he going to do to the government? What's he going to do to everybody around him? Who would want to work for him? Those kinds of common sense thoughts, I think, are going to mobilize a 50% majority in this country to say, oh, no, we're not going down that road again.
Well, a supersized panel on a historic day. Allie, Darlene, Faiz, Doug, thank you all so much for joining Meet the Press Now. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.